Welcome to Murfreesboro Storytellers. Today our program is originating in downtown Murfreesboro at the headquarters of the Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue Department. We're pleased to have our two special guests today, David Baxter, former chief of the department. Welcome, David.
Glad to be here.
And welcome the new chief of the department, and that's Mark Foulks, who comes to us from East Tennessee. Mark, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Welcome to Murfreesboro as well as to the program.
Very happy to be here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark. You've been in the Fire and Rescue Department for a number of years.
Yeah, I started my career in the Knoxville Fire Department in 1990. I was kind of preceded in my career by my father. He retired. We actually got to work together for about 3 years on the department, but he retired after almost 30 years in the fire service. Okay. And so I went on there in 1990, kind of rose through the ranks, became the assistant chief over special operations, which primarily encompassed emergency medical services, technical rescue, hazardous materials operations. Left in 2006 to become the fire chief in Greenville, got appointed to the fire chief in Greenville, Tennessee, and was there almost 9 years before accepting the position here.
What is the size of Greenville now? It's smaller than Murfreesboro.
Yeah, it's quite a bit smaller than Murfreesboro. It's a small town. It's about 15,000 people or so, about 17 square miles.
And home of President Andrew Johnson, I believe,
yes.
As a matter of fact. David, you served as chief for 20 years, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How many years on the department?
I had 31 years with the fire department. I also worked for the recreation department years before that.
And then after you retired as chief, you went to work for the state as well, did you not?
Yes, sir. I ran the state bomb and arson division for a couple of years and really enjoyed that job also.
How did the department change over the 31 years that you were serving and 20 years as a chief?
Well, it was very interesting. Back when I started in '77, it was a very small department, probably about 60 employees. We had 3 fire stations, and it just, through the growth of Murfreesboro, we were able to continue building the fire department. And also, under the direction of Claude Armour was brought in. He was the fire and police commissioner in Memphis, and then was commissioner of the state of Tennessee. Right. And then he came into Murfreesboro and was the fire and police commissioner.
Okay.
And at that point, Bobby Swan was the fire chief. And from that point on, we just continued to work and grow.
And you followed Bobby Swan as chief, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Mark, tell us about the size of the department now.
We have 189 total personnel, so it's grown a lot since Chief Baxter first started, and I know it grew a lot under his leadership as the chief of the department. But we have about 189 total personnel. We have 9 stations that are operating at this time, providing a wide range of fire suppression as well as emergency medical services response, hazardous materials response, technical rescue response, which is anything from swiftwater rescue to confined space rescue, trench rescue, those kind of things.
And with the enormous growth that we're experiencing, even more so than when David was chief, how are you able to keep up with the growth of Murfreesboro? Are other stations planned?
Yeah, there are some stations planned in the future. Of course, we have Station 10 that's already built, but we haven't staffed it to date. That's being looked at, and when it's feasible to staff it as far as the run volume that station would get and the response time issues with the growth that's happening in that area where Station 10 is, we will staff that station at an appropriate time. And then there's Station 11 and Station 12 are also kind of in the capital improvement plan in the future.
Where would they be? Or do you know yet?
One of them is going to be out near the industrial area, Joe B. Jackson.
Okay.
And then I'm not exactly sure where the other one's going to be located as of yet.
Well, I can imagine it's a real challenge to keep up with the growth.
Yes.
David, how did the department change over the years that you were chief?
Well, I can remember, back when I started at the fire department, we were just fire suppression, so we were just going out and fighting fires. Then again, like I said, Mr. Armour brought the department more up to date as far as training, getting more involved in the community. And so we went actually from a class 5 in the fire rating, 10 being the worst, 1 being the best. We were at 5 at that particular point in time, and reduced down to a 4 while Mr. Armour was here.
And that affects my fire insurance premium, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
So the higher you are in classification, the lower the insurance premium is.
If you were a class 10, that means you have no fire protection.
Oh, okay.
So 1 being the best, 10 being the worst.
Yeah. When did we add the EMT work with the department and add the rescue to that?
That was probably around, I think 2002, 2003.
Okay.
We started the first responder program, hired 3 paramedics to oversee it, and got into extrication, first responder, which really helped the community, or actually our city. And then as that went on from extrication to first responder, then it's moved on into the hazmat and so forth. So back years ago, it's like you just went out and fought fires.
Right.
And then the training has developed to where you have to have so many more skills.
How many, are all your firefighters trained as responders? Or is it just?
Most all of our firefighters are trained as some type of an emergency medical response. Our levels go from emergency medical responder, which is kind of your lowest level, up to paramedic. A lot of our responders are either emergency medical technicians or paramedics at this time to provide a little bit higher level of service.
So today, when there's a fire call, do you all answer as well as the emergency medical service?
When there's a fire call, we answer it alone, as far as that goes. When there's an emergency medical call, it depends on the severity of the call. If it's a life-threatening medical emergency, we will answer with the ambulance service.
Okay.
But there are calls that the ambulance service will not answer, or they will answer that we will not go on them that are not life-threatening calls.
Back when we started the medical first responder program, it was kind of like we had stations surrounded the city, so we could actually respond, and depending on where the ambulance was located, we might could get there before the ambulance could.
Right.
Or we got there and stabilized the patient until the ambulance service got there and transported.
So it's a great relationship working together to take care of the needs there.
That's correct.
How many, you say you have a number of people at different levels of training there. If a new person comes into the department, would they immediately go into that type of training as well?
Yes, we send everybody through what's called a recruit school if they do not have certification levels that we need them to be at, which is Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2 certifications. We will send them to rookie school, Tennessee Fire and Codes Academy. They will get the training that they need to become certified as firefighter, at least Firefighter 2. We will then additionally send them to additional training to become emergency medical responders at a minimum, and a lot of the folks that we're hiring now are coming to us with emergency medical technician as their initial licensure level.
We still have the fire school, I believe, located in Murfreesboro, do we not? Does it still operate?
It's actually the fire school's in Bedford County now.
That's correct, thank you.
But the original fire school started at MTSU.
On the
and
MTSU campus.
Then it was built out on Old Fort Parkway with the Technology Center.
There, correct.
And that's one of the reasons Murfreesboro Fire Department is really such a great department, was because we were centrally located and we had the state fire school here, so we were sending everybody to get educated through the fire academy.
Do you still send members of your department there?
Yes, we actually have the Tennessee Fire and Codes Academy here in Murfreesboro teaching some of our fire officers today. They're teaching our fire officers a lot of the new firefighting tactics that we're kind of looking at employing within Murfreesboro for the safety of firefighters and ease of doing operations.
How do tactics change over the years?
Well,
give me an example of how it used to be and what you do now.
Well, back when my dad was in the fire service, and well before I started, or not well before I started, but just shortly before I started, just about everything that you had to deal with fire-wise was made out of natural materials. It was all wood. It was natural fibers, either cotton, batting, or feathers, or things that were natural in nature.
Okay.
That's what all of our furniture was made out of. Today, everything's made out of synthetics, and literally when that stuff catches on fire, it builds heat at a much, much higher rate than the old cotton materials and the old wood materials, and it really creates a big heat issue for our firefighters. So years ago, with the evolutions of SCBA, or self-contained breathing apparatus, we started going into fire buildings and actually attacking the fire from inside and kind of pushing it out. There was a belief at the time that if you attacked the fire from outside of the building, that you would push the fire through the structure and that you could hurt the occupants inside. On the last several years, several organizations, national organizations, have done a lot of research. In Spartanburg, South Carolina, they've done a lot of what they call live burns with new fuel packages, what they're calling with modern furniture. And they'll go in and do research on those things and using new tactics.
such as applying water from outside the structure if the fire is venting already outside, will really reduce and cool those temperatures, and done in the proper manner, it doesn't increase that heat level, like you would think within the house, and it doesn't push the fire through the house. It doesn't hurt the occupants to do that. It actually reduces the temperatures a lot inside the structure, and that's what our fire officers are currently training on.
What are typical temperatures that you're engaged with when you're fighting a fire?
Well, it depends on what products are in there.
I guess, yes.
In the past, if we set fuel packages into if we're doing live burns, and we will set a fuel package in there, if we use straw, pallets, and wood type materials, most of the time those temperatures can get up to maybe 1,000, 1,100 degrees. If we put a modern set of furniture or mattresses or things that are made out of synthetics and plastics like computers and things like that into a room, we can get temperatures upwards of 2,100 degrees, but we commonly see them at 14, 15, 1,600 degrees.
Didn't realize it got that high. That's interesting.
Yeah,
David,
and those temperatures are even untenable by a firefighter fully geared out. I mean, they can't survive in those type of temperatures.
Right.
Back in the old days, before SCBAs, firefighters would go in, and you knew how hot it was by the temperature of your ears.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, when your ears were burning, it was time to get out.
You knew it was time to move. Interesting. Yeah. David, you mentioned you had a lot of your members, when you were chief, involved in the community and other activities as far as state boards and commissions.
Yes, sir. We right before I retired, we had somebody on every fire-related service organization board in the state of Tennessee. Murfreesboro was really looked up to. We were the leaders across the state, and proud of all the men and women that served on those boards. Proud of our honor guard for what they've done. They've won 2 national champions. It's been a great opportunity for our firefighters to move up through the ranks and learn about the whole industry.
And after you retired, you worked for the state as well, didn't you? Serve with the
Yes,
state?
sir. I ran the bomb and arson division, which, like most cities, have their own arson divisions, or inspectors, or somebody can go out and determine fires. And the state's a different level, because most of the time you dealt with the counties that may not have arson investigators.
Okay.
So that was very interesting too.
Do we see a lot of evidence of arson today? How can you determine whether it was or not?
Well, we've got arson investigators within the department.
Okay.
Plus,
all right.
we also have really good partnerships with the bomb and arson division, the fire marshal's office with the state. And there is an arson task force here in Rutherford County where we share resources and do a lot of things like that. But they look for, there's a lot of particular things. It's really highly technical training that they do. But they look for a lot of particular things, especially burn patterns, things that really just do not make sense when it comes to what the occupants were reporting may have caused the fire, things like that. Some things are kind of easy to tell if you've got an electrical outlet that's short-circuited, or if we've got an outlet that's overloaded with circuits. Those things are typically easy to tell through a burn pattern, but it's almost as easy to tell the same thing if somebody's used accelerants or other means to set fires. Those investigators are trained really, really well to see those patterns.
Do they receive some of that training at Bedford County at the academy, or
yes,
otherwise?
Tennessee Codes and Fire and Codes Academy teaches a lot of those classes for fire investigators as well as fire inspectors and along those lines.
And the IAAI's arson conference every year that recertifies arson investigators. That's really a good training program.
Is that a state program, or is that a national?
Well, it's connected with the state, but it's actually just an international organization that provide training for arson investigators and also investigators for insurance companies and so forth.
Chief, in your experience of major fires that you've been involved in, and problems that you've encountered and where you've overcome them to be able to put the fire out, I guess I should say.
Yeah, well, I've experienced several major incidents myself as far as being in the fire department, both as a firefighter, had major large fires when I was with Knoxville. As a incident commander type situation, had a couple of larger fires in Knoxville, as well as we had 2 large structure fires in Greenville that had significant loss, both a downtown building as well as a large warehouse that we had when I was there. We were able to The biggest thing that you look for on those, a lot of times when you get really large structure fires, there's not a lot you're going to do to save that one structure.
Sure.
What you do is look at saving the other structures, but more importantly, keeping both the public and your firefighters safe.
Right, very good. David, I remember years and years ago when there was a fire siren, I guess in downtown Murfreesboro, when there was a fire, that siren went off and everybody in town knew there was a fire somewhere.
Well, John, that was before my time.
I know it was. Well, I remember working radio and working news. I would know to get in the car and go to that location because there was a fire somewhere.
But it is interesting that here in this main station, that it's like a bunk room where all the firefighters slept. And back then we didn't have 911.
Right.
It was the calls actually came into the fire station, and you didn't have a dispatcher at night, so the assistant chief or whoever would jump up and grab the phone at night and answer it, and
So
everybody in the station
Okay.
would hear where the fire was located, and then we'd respond out from that.
893-1622, was that the
That's
number?
it.
I always had a problem in remembering whether it was 1422 or 1622, so I didn't call the emergency number.
But it's amazing what 911 how much it has helped through the years locating.
And enjoying serving with you all on the 911 board, and Chief Foulks has now become a member of that board. Now, you still have sleeping quarters at the main, or all the stations, I guess.
All of the stations our firefighters are on duty 24 hours,
Okay.
and then they're off 48 hours. That's our
Okay.
typical shift. And so they do stay here day and night, and we do have sleeping quarters for them here, so that during those hours at night, if they're not answering calls, which typically does happen at most
Sure.
of our stations, they can get some rest.
Do you still have the poles that slide down?
We
They're
never
all-
had poles here.
Never had poles
No.
here. They ought to be on the second floor. I always think of firefighters coming down that pole.
We had them at several stations in Knoxville.
Okay.
And then the insurance folks, our occupational safety and health folks, don't really like those poles a whole lot because they are quite dangerous.
I can imagine.
In the past, it was probably the best means for us to use them, for some of those really older stations. But I think we've learned a lot from getting firefighters injured over the years, how to prevent those injuries, and that's kind of why they've gone away.
Yeah, even the design of the newer stations have, the quick access from the bedroom out to the fire trucks.
Yes. Not on a second floor like
No,
it used to be,
no.
right?
One level.
Yeah. What's the typical reaction time when a fire call comes in?
Of the firefighters, we ask for them, and the National Fire Protection Association kind of puts a benchmark out there of being on the truck and leaving in 80 seconds.
80 seconds.
And we typically do better than that here. Our firefighters are very responsive. They do very well, what we call turnout time, or getting out of the station. They do very, very well at that. I'd say during daytime hours, you'd see that even be down to 30
My
seconds.
goodness, that's rapid. Very good.
We've been very fortunate in Murfreesboro, though our mayors and councils through the years have really supported the fire department. Mayor Jackson was really funny because whenever we'd buy a new fire engine, he'd always come out and check them out, and he'd say, "Yeah, I used to drive one of those fire wagons." And but he was always very supportive, T90 scales. It was just amazing through the years how the council, Mayor Bragg and Vice Mayor Young now, actually went to our Citizens Fire Academy.
Oh, wonderful.
Back several years ago.
By the way, that happens, what, annually or semi-annually?
Yeah, we do an annual Citizens Fire Academy. We've had one in progress right now.
Okay.
We'll be in our third week this next coming week of doing that. So we're really excited about that Citizens Fire Academy and what it teaches our citizens about our department and how we serve the community. And our firefighters are really proud to show the community what we do for them.
What's the length of the school?
I think it's 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Yeah,
One
in total.
night or one day a week?
Yeah, one night a week.
Okay. Very good. You mentioned Joe Jackson. We were in the Exchange Club together many years ago. We did have a fire and rescue unit that we worked in as volunteers, and we'd always go to the fire parades everywhere. And I remember one year over at Franklin, they had the main road construction going on, so we detoured and had to go in through a tunnel, and the fire truck got stuck in the tunnel trying to get away from the parade, but we let the air out of the tires and everything worked fine. What does a typical engine cost?
Well, the engines that we use, we use both engines and aerial apparatus, and the ladder trucks will run right around $1 million to $1.2 million, and our engines are running right around $500,000 now. Very expensive.
Back in it was 1990, we bought 3 fire engines had telesquirts on them. They were $863,000 back then, and so the price has definitely gone up through the years. But it's interesting. I drove the fire truck that's in the Discovery Center.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, so 1954. I probably shouldn't say that. It's like, oh.
That's all right.
But actually, that was a backup fire engine. And but even when I took over as chief, we had 4 open cab fire engines.
Okay.
So
Firemen and firefighters don't hang on the back like I used to see them traditionally years gone by. They're all inside in the cab, right?
Yeah, and even when I came on in 1990, we still had my first 2 fire trucks that I worked on, and the 2 trucks that were our station were a 63 model Seagraves ladder truck and a 1973 Sutphen pumper. And those trucks had open cabs in the back. We've gone away from doing those. Like we said, we've learned a lot about keeping firefighters safe over the years, and we've got a lot of safety measures in place, and that's what it's all about. Is it's difficult for our firefighters to do anything if they get hurt and we create another incident, and so that's our first goal, is to keep our firefighters safe.
What's a typical mileage on one of your engines? Very low, I would assume.
yeah, they normally don't. Well, since the medical first responder, the mileage went up, but back years ago, they wouldn't have hardly any miles on them.
Yeah.
But you have enough calls, enough in service to keep them running good, as well as maintained all along.
Yeah, and actually, what we saw when we started doing first responder in Knoxville, and I'm sure it's the same here, is a lot of times when we were just answering fire calls, some of those trucks would sit a couple of days without going on a response. And for diesel engines, they really like that. I mean, they actually run better when they're run more often and started more often and things like that. And so in the past, you always kind of typically had to put something in place to where you got the trucks out at least on the skirt in front of the fire station and started up the pump and did those kind of things just to get them in usable condition. And today we can kind of keep them in usable conditions because we're running them a whole lot more than we used to in the past.
Do you have any diesels today?
Yeah, we have all diesels.
They're all diesels, okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good. David, what's your fondest recollection of your service in the department?
Well, it's after 31 years, it's like we really proud of what Murfreesboro has done with fire police. It's amazing that our city leaders allowed us to grow and develop. And you know, I told you earlier about we were the first department in the state to have infrared cameras.
Yes.
And at the time they were like $25,000 a piece, and back in the 80s, or maybe 80s now. Anyway, it was really expensive for those. We bought 2 cameras, and it's funny because Tom Reed, our city attorney, actually wanted to see Murfreesboro have those because they were just so important to the fire service. So it was there again to see what has developed with our department and our city. It's just been wonderful.
I guess it's a challenge to continually keep your equipment up to date and the latest that's out.
Yeah, that is a challenge in keeping the best equipment, and as Chief Baxter mentioned, the city here very well supports our fire department. The city manager, the mayor, and the council are very supportive of this department. They have supported it very well with equipment, and especially safety equipment for our firefighters, newer apparatus to where you're not trying to use something that you're trying to keep in service just with maintenance issues and a lot of other things like that. They're really progressive here, and they stay on top of those equipment replacements, but it is a challenge to try to keep up with some of those things. And just to kind of show where we've progressed from having those first thermal imaging cameras, is what they're called. We have one on every apparatus now.
Well, do you really?
And so, and those, they're used at just about every single fire incident that we would have.
I just can't reiterate enough about the men and women of the fire department, what they do daily. It's you think about when you have a fire, any type of emergency, they're running in while everybody else is running out.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, they're great servants as far as our community.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize what they miss just by being on duty for that 24 hours. Ball games, recitals, sporting events with their families, holidays that they're here working, and things like that. And that's the one thing that I've found in the few short weeks that I've been here is even as good as our equipment is, which it is very good compared to most every department in the state, if not all, our firefighters are top notch. I mean, we have some really, really great people here, and I appreciate the service that they do for this community every single day.
That's always been my impression of the department and the personnel. If you had one wish, what would it be for the department and the service?
My wish is that every firefighter goes home when they leave here that next morning, that they leave here in as good or better shape than they did the morning before. And that's my whole goal, is to keep our firefighters safe. And that's my wish, is that we don't even get firefighters hurt, much less have one severely injured or killed in the line of duty here.
Are there other pieces of equipment that you need? Are there more developments in firefighting equipment that you try to stay on top of?
Yeah, we try to stay on top of them, like we mentioned about the new firefighting tactics. We try to really stay on top of equipment that may be there. You try not to jump off, because product manufacturers will come out with something that's deemed as being the latest and the greatest, and you want to make sure that you evaluate that effectively as you need to. But in the last few years, some new things have come out with our SCBAs, to where we've got measures in place to where if a downed firefighter needs additional air, they can actually fill that bottle with another bottle without having to try to transfer a mask over like we used to do in the past, and some things like that. What we call bailout kits, where firefighters can get out of a second or third or fourth story window, that we can get some of those. So all the new and latest things, the city's very supportive about providing those here. And we try to stay on top of those. And like I said, you can't jump on every little thing that comes out. You have to evaluate those and kind of do some research on them to make sure that they are what they say they are. But we try to stay on top of that technology need.
What is the budget of the fire department?
The budget of the fire department, I think, is a little over $16 million.
And as David has mentioned, we certainly have a great supportive of the council and the mayor and the city administration historically, and continue to do that and realize the need.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate both of you coming and joining us, talking about the Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue Department. Cumbie Gaines, who just retired from the department, had been invited to come. His mother has not been well, and Cumbie was unable to make a commitment. But we wish you well and wish you every success in continuing to serve the community. Any final thoughts you have, David?
We're just blessed to be here.
Chief?
I'm very, very happy to be here and serve this community. The fire service means a lot to me, as well as our firefighters, and I'm very happy to be a part of Murfreesboro. Looking forward to a lot of success here with this department.
Can't ask for anything more than that. I failed to ask you about your family. How much family you have?
Yeah, my family is, my son has got to finish up the semester at Greenville High School, but we've already bought a house in the community. Sure. He's going to be attending school here at Blackman High School. Oh, my daughter is planning on transferring from East Tennessee State University to Middle Tennessee State University.
She'll be blue then.
Yep, she's going to be blue, and my wife, all of us will hopefully be whole around the middle of December.
Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you both for being with us. David Baxter, retired chief of the Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue Department, and Chief Mark Foulks, who is now the brand new chief of the Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue. We wish you both every success and every happiness. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.